Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. The bigger picture, only on Money FM 89.3.
Good morning. Welcome to The Bigger Picture, and we are zooming in on the National Day rally, where Prime Minister Lawrence Wong called on Singaporeans to band together to write the next chapter of the nation's story, as he set out plans to support them throughout various stages of life. So in his second National Day rally speech as Prime Minister, he acknowledged the disruptive potential of new technology like AI, while outlining plans for strengthening job matching services so Singaporeans do not fall behind, and also talked about how tariffs will impact Singapore. So putting on an economic lens to take a look at how or what stood out from National Day rally, we've got Selena Ling. She is the Chief Economist for OCBC. Good morning, Selena. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, lots to unpack from the weekend's speech. So let's start there first. What do you take away from the tone of the rally in terms of perhaps optimism looking ahead to what's in store?
Well, I think it was quite pragmatic optimism, basically a bit cautious ago, given all the current challenges that we have from the tariffs and also the geopolitical uncertainties, but also optimistic in the sense that, a lot of references to how jobs and they're going to tackle the challenge on that, AI, what are the double-edged sword kind of risk and reward, and also on the housing front. So on one hand, there is recognition of looming challenges, but on the other hand, it's very much a story of Singapore's spirit and partnership.
Yeah, not a lot of details, but like pointed out, there is this optimism, pragmatic optimism. Let's dive into some of the themes that stood out. And we talked about tariffs being touched on by PM Lawrence Wong. And this is where Singapore is now facing 10% tariffs that the US has imposed on the country. How do you assess what's been played out so far when it comes to the impact of the tariffs on Singapore?
Well, indeed, Singapore's first half outperformance really could have been front-loading. So we had a tech rebound, so electronics benefited, so logistics and shipping and the others also basically rode on the tailcoats of that. But I think the key outlook here is that for second half, with the implementation of the reciprocal tariffs from the US front and with China demand remaining a little bit soft, that could actually mean it's a story of two halves, and second half could be a lot lower than what we saw in the first half.
Yeah, so PM Lawrence Wong talked about how the 10% tariff is the baseline, but that offers little comfort. So what can Singapore do to address or mitigate these impacts?
Well, I think basically some of the approach is quite sensible. We're talking about supply chain diversification. We're talking about deeper engagement with the other markets outside of China and the US. And this could include both the ASEAN and also Middle East new markets. And then, of course, looking at new growth sectors like the green economy, the AI side of things. So I think generally quite business as usual on, this open trade architecture and Singapore's approach to basically having free and open trade with everyone.
Okay, so diversifying and looking for more deals. And also talking about what is in store in terms of challenges. We've got a lot going on when it comes to jobs, and this was a big focus at the National Day rally. So in that vein, we have in store traineeship programs for ITE, Polytechnic and university graduates. What do you see now are the biggest pain points when it comes to the labour market?
Well, given the recent attention on the difficulties of fresh graduates to find employment in the current economic climate, so this graduate trainee program obviously would be very welcome initiative. But I think it's not just about fresh graduates per se, because I think an ongoing issue, of course, would be that, PMETs who are either retrenched or displaced for, industry restructuring or AI for that matter, they may actually find traineeships less viable. And I think for them, the sharper pain point really is one of skills mismatch, because you have fast growing roles, in AI and cyber and green tech, but you have oversupply of labor, in traditional sectors. So what you end up with is a bit of a labor market bifurcation. Some sectors like healthcare and IT, labor conditions are still tight, but others like retail and admin may actually see about slack. So it's more about the transition process for workers and how agile they are in moving across industries. Yeah,
I suppose that goes to the point of how AI is disrupting many things in many industries. And PM Wong talked about how AI is a game changer for productivity. So from your viewpoint, how do you see AI manifesting in some of the data that Singapore reports? What are you seeing in terms of indicators? Is that being reflected in terms of how AI is already making an impact?
Well, there is a lot of focus on AI being a game changer. For certain industries, we see early signs of AI-driven lift. So these are more visible, for instance, in like finance, because you have digital wealth platforms, you have compliance and legal automation, in certain sectors like logistics that was mentioned, port operations and route optimization. But I think for other sectors, for SMEs in particular, they are the slower adopters. So traditional services like retail, F&B, where margins are tight, business running costs are high, and tech adoption costs remain a hurdle. And this is probably where policymakers can actually step up. And this is what I think the government is looking at. So there will be schemes, basically to help both firms and also workers to keep up with the speed of AI disruption.
Yeah, so to that point, how much do you think Singapore's training and job matching schemes can realistically keep pace with the speed of AI disruption?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, AI is not about a one-time productivity bump, but, you need a whole ecosystem, right? You basically need, workers to continually upgrade their skills. You also need firms to basically, pivot and repivot in order to take advantage of AI and to mitigate some of the risk that comes along with AI. And you need a government whole ecosystem, of course, that, basically has some common platforms that can help the slower adopting SMEs to basically, share costs and also to basically leverage on the technology without having to come up with some of the upfront costs. And of course, SMEs, in particular, they may not have the mind share, to actually look at this area. So this is really where a lot of the policy initiatives will come in quite handy.
Yeah, good point on how it's not a one-off disruption, but it is going to be a journey for all of us to continually upgrade. And talking about a journey, Singapore is facing an aging population. This is one of the challenges that PM Wong touched on. How urgent is this problem, and what are future implications and issues that we need to watch out for to confront from at least an economic perspective?
Well, I think the economic implications of an aging population, or especially a super aged society, is quite clear. Labour force, you're talking about slower growth or even contraction in the resident workforce. This could potentially be a drag on GDP growth unless you offset with productivity gains or immigration. And then, of course, on the fiscal side, you have rising healthcare and long-term care spending projections. So social transfers may also, in time, start to strain the budget. And then, of course, in terms of savings and investment patterns, aging typically may dampen the consumption of durable goods and housing while boosting demand for healthcare and insurance. So I think in terms of, the announcements by PM Wong in terms of the community care apartments and the age-well neighborhoods, that's really more on the social infrastructure side. But I think, the bigger question still remains, like how to balance immigration versus the local upskilling in the local workforce.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts, and you touched on a very good point, the labour market levers as well as immigration, and a lot to look at. I'm sure we'll be getting more details in time to come. We've been in conversation with Selena Ling. She is the Chief Economist and Head of Global Markets Research and Strategy at OCBC, helping us to unpack some of the main themes from the National Day Rally speech over the weekend from Prime Minister Lawrence Wong. Selena, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, talk to you again soon. Stay Money FM 89.3.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.